Hello, Astro community. Happy Venus retrograde for everybody. I thought this might be the perfect moment to actually make an in-depth video about Venus retrograde as a natal positioning and as well other karmic Venus positionings, like for example Venus on 29 degrees or Venus conjuncting Chiron or Venus conjuncting the North Node or the South Node, or a Venus in the 12th house to a lesser degree, like to the least degree, let's say. Okay, but let's start with Venus retrograde. So we all get a little feeling of Venus retrograde right now, but there is about 8% of people who are born with this. So their entire life is a Venus retrograde story. And I'm gonna line out like the main characteristics of how these people feel and what's kind of their story about love and relationships throughout life. So the first thing that might seem very normal and obvious for everybody else but is not to a Venus retrograde is that love and attraction are not the same thing. Because attraction is usually a karmic aspect, especially like really high attraction. And people who have a Venus retrograde or another karmic Venus positioning have a compulsion to follow karmic lessons. So this attraction, when they see somebody, for them is much stronger than for the other 92% of people. Obviously, other people also see somebody they are attracted to, but for them, it's not a trigger to act on it immediately. Like for people with a Venus retrograde, it is a trigger to immediately act on it. They cannot resist this pull of attraction because it's more than just like a physical, biological attraction. It's a karmic attraction. Their soul on some level feels like I need this person in order to fulfill my developmental goal. So this kind of strong attraction pull really blinds them to see real life compatibility. They only know love as attraction. They really take a very long time to understand how to assess compatibility with another person and not only to form relationships out of attraction. So since it is only 8% of people, they will most of the time tend to form relationships with normal Venuses. And that's where it gets really tough for them, because normal Venuses tend to feel odd with a Venus retrograde who is, like really into it, like into the depths from the very beginning. And when other normal Venuses feel this, they tend to pull back because they, first of all, don't understand why the relationship suddenly got so deep and so serious in an instant, and they tend to withdraw because for them, attraction is not a reason to commit. But for the Venus retrograde, it is. So as soon as they feel attraction, they're committed. And they absolutely don't understand why people pull back when they start showing this trait. Another characteristic of the Venus retrograde is that they cannot move on. Like it says, retrograde means it's like redoing, replaying everything, rethinking. So the Venus retrograde people tend to get stuck on every small thing that went wrong, on every small situation. They just cannot move on. They keep replaying this in their mind and just really analyzing things down to their atom. They can spend hours and hours re-talking a certain situation or a certain emotional state. They can also spend hours and hours re-talking about how they feel about you and like positive things as well. But they also tend to get very stuck in negative loops of thinking and trying to resolve a certain relationship problem. They can't understand that by overthinking it, they will not resolve anything, and that they should just need to learn to let go of things and move on and forgive. So similarly, it's very hard for them to move on after a breakup. They just cannot, they just never have this feeling like it's been resolved. They're always left with a feeling of there's something, that hasn't been resolved in the relationship, and that's what keeps them stuck thinking about this past relationship over and over again. How they might experience it for themselves is that they have more of a depth of feeling, and that's why they just don't move on as easily. They might feel like the whole world is so superficial and they just move on like to the next person after each breakup without really suffering, and they are the only ones who truly love and hence suffer more after a breakup. Whereas, yeah, it has more to do with the fact that they have this obsessive compulsive characteristic of being stuck to the past. What they usually do is, because there is not many other Venus retrogrades available, they tend to partner with people who in their chart have naturally some obsessive compulsive characteristics, for example, like somebody with a Scorpio dominance, or what they also like is people who are more codependent, so they don't get abandoned really quickly. Like, for example, people with a Libra or Pisces dominance are also quite attractive to Venus retrogrades, because yeah, they tend to stick around more and to tolerate more of this unknown behaviors, unknown, I mean, to the other normal Venuses. Okay, so connected to this topic of not being able to let go, Venus retrograde people never really get over their exes, you know, let's say it as it is. They always somehow keep a little piece of their heart reserved for an ex. So there is always like this like bit of love left for an ex. They always also like to keep this little door open to the possibility that they might eventually get back with an ex. So they never really let go of any of their exes. And every time they find themselves being single again, before they consider looking for a new person or starting a new relationship, they will always try to recycle, like to get back with an ex. Like getting back with exes or going back to what they know feels much more exciting or natural to them than just meeting a new person. Like meeting somebody new and like starting all of this all over again, which might feel exciting to other people, to them just feels really tiring and irritating. They don't like to start new relationships or start new emotional connections as much as they like to, go back to what they already know. Venus is obviously also concerned with beauty and self-esteem. So people who have a Venus that is somehow, either retrograde or on one of the other challenging positionings will find themselves having troubles with self-worth and self-esteem. Most of the time, it's like literally I never ever met somebody who doesn't have that, but I met a lot of people where it doesn't show, because this intrinsic feeling of feeling undesirable, because Venus is, this lushness and this feeling of natural beauty and natural attraction that we feel we have, that just doesn't exist with challenging Venus aspects. So they feel intrinsically undesirable and most of the time also ugly. So they suffer from some kind of body dysmorphia. They don't see themselves as they truly are. So they are not able to see their natural beauty. And the two ways the Venus retrogrades act or deal with this feeling is, one, they overcompensate. So they will spend excessive amounts of time, attention, money to upgrading their beauty. No matter how beautiful they already are, they will always try to kind of upgrade and have a lot of makeup, hairdos, do lots of workout to get in better shape, on diets, maybe even, like some body changes like tattoos or piercings, just they will do anything to change how they look, because how they look doesn't feel enough to them. They're also very prone to actually doing surgical interventions and starting to, upgrade face or liposuctions, whatever it is. So it is just very obsessive behavior. They cannot stop and they also tend to overspend or overeat or go on serial dating to just like overdo everything that has to do with Venus. And the other way to deal with this is to actually surrender to this feeling and to not try to fight it, but kind of accept that you are unworthy. So these people really convince themselves that nobody could possibly ever be attracted to them, and they don't even like get out and try to have a romantic connection because they just feel unworthy of anything, and so they just bury all of their Venusian desires to be loved, to be appreciated, to be attractive, to have a relationship. They just bury all of this deep inside. Or they find a channel for it, like art, for example. They could just like channel all of these into something else. But both, no matter like if they overcompensate or they surrender to it, both have this intrinsic feeling that they have nothing to offer. So because of this, when they are actually in a relationship, these people need a lot of displays of love and affection and reassurance and confirmation, because they don't feel like they are actually worthy of their partner or of the relationship. So it might feel like they are needy, or the partner might feel overwhelmed in how much they need to reassert that they love them and they appreciate them and they are attracted to them. But it might feel like a bottomless hole for the partner. There's just so many things that for a Venus retrograde seem so off when it comes to relationships, and it seems so natural to everybody else, like the way to form relationships, the way to be in relationships. Everybody feels like this is something you just know, but the Venus retrograde people don't. They just don't understand how everybody does that. And when it comes to love and relationships, they literally feel like somebody put them in a dark room and locked the doors, and now they're standing there. They can't even see their own hand in front of their eyes. And two ways that Venus retrogrades act in this kind of moment or in this life for them is that they either just start walking in the dark, although they don't see anything, and they just stumble over things, break things, and fall down and get up again, or they just freeze and don't move. So that's kind of these two ways that they act in relationships too. They don't know how it works, or so they maybe just throw themselves in there and keep trying, although they don't understand how it works, or they just like freeze and become really introverted and don't even try at all because it freaks them out. It can even happen that they alternate between these two states within one relationship, so that at first, they summon up all of their strength and throw themselves into another relationship. Or they stop and suddenly don't write you at all anymore. And it's not because they want to, play games. It's just because they actually run out of courage and they drop back into their old feeling of, unworthiness. And it's very, very hard for those folks to even start a new relationship, because they intrinsically somehow feel that they are not in for a funfair ride when they enter a relationship. And they have this underlying fear of entering a relationship because their every experience with relationships was very difficult and very painful. So to actually start something takes them a lot of strength, and you don't know how much time they spent gathering this strength. So it might sometimes feel like they just like burst out and jump into something like really deeply, but then suddenly withdraw, because what actually happened is that they just ran out of willpower and drop back into how they actually feel, which is unworthy and very, very scared of the relationships. This might even go as far as them sometimes feeling like they will, like losing hope and feeling like they will never find love, and they are being cursed when it comes to love, and they need a lot of mental strength to behave like everybody else when it comes to relationships, and sometimes they just don't have it, so they just stop relationships altogether. And this is also like a very big trait of Venus retrogrades, to have cycles of like going into relationships a lot and very deep, and then cycles of completely not doing it at all. And to find a balance between these two is very difficult for them. So these characteristics that I explained from Venus retrograde are characteristics that most karmic Venus placements will feel to some degree, but not all of it. So I'm going to go through the other ones and just say what the differences are to Venus retrograde in them. If you have Venus in the 29th degree, it will feel like Venus retrograde in a lot of ways, but in certain ways not. And the ways that it is not like Venus retrograde is the kind of enthusiasm and relentlessness with which it keeps jumping into new relationships. Because Venus on the 29th degree, it's the last degree of the, zodiac sign it is in. And it implies a sense of urgency. So these people have a sense of urgency that they need to resolve, this lesson in this lifetime. And they need to make as many experiences in love and relationships as they possibly can, and to resolve as much karma as they possibly can in this very field. So yeah, their soul has this feeling like it is my last opportunity to master this lesson. That's why they seem to have crushes often and change partners quickly, and to move on very quickly. And there's this insatiability within them when it comes to love and relationships, and they don't take as much time looking back like the Venus retrograde. They just keep going, and they're quite straightforward when it comes to pursuing what they want or who they want, because they have this sense of urgency and of hurry that they need to get into relationships. It's like a compulsion almost, and they are, because of this compulsion, they're definitely less blocked and less scared than the Venus retrograde to jump into new relationships. So one could say that with the Venus on 29 degrees, you have a bottomless well of hope. Like, they actually don't get discouraged as quickly as a Venus retrograde in jumping into new relationships and trying again and again and again. What they need to take care of is really to properly heal or acknowledge their wounds before they go on, and they also need to try to become more selective when it comes to the people that they jump into relationship experiences with. Then there is Venus conjunct Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer, as we know, and Chiron shows where our wounds are, where our pain is, and what we need to, where we need to go through pain in order to reach transformation, where we learn through pain. Venus conjuncting Chiron implies that relationships is the field where we decided to heal our wounds through pain, or we decided to heal our wounds through relationship, to heal our pain through relationship. That's the right way around. However, it also means that relationships and love equals pain in our experience from very early on. And this is again an internal experience. So it's not that we actually keep meeting people who are hurting us more than they would hurt somebody else, but it's just that we experience it. It's so much more hurtful, because Chiron obviously also hurt our Venus, our self-confidence, our belief in love, our self-esteem. So it's much easier to hurt us, because we already have an open wound there that other people don't have. So when you stick a finger into that, it hurts more than it hurts with somebody who doesn't have this positioning. So Venus conjunct Chiron people feel very hurt very often, and they need to find ways to get conscious about this pain and own it, and not project it on other people, and see that the pain, like this unproportionate amount of pain that they feel in relationships compared to others, is not because they keep meeting people that are especially mad or mean, but because they have a really big wound and they need to acknowledge this wound and yeah, try to work on their own self-worth so that relationships don't have the potential of hurting them so much anymore. Yeah, I mean, the Chiron Venus position is the one where self-esteem is hurt the most, because Chiron is also just as a mythological figure not the most beautiful one. It's like basically like a monster. So these people do feel like, you know, they might look in the mirror and see a monster. They might, you know, really have a very distorted vision of themselves, and that's the first step, what they need to work on if they want to have an easier way in relationships. The last one that is in this, that belongs to this group of kind of karmic Venus relationships, is that the Venus conjunct North Node. This is a little bit different than everything else, and also Venus conjunct South Node respectively as well. They are different from Venus conjunct Chiron and 29 degrees in retrograde. But what I see with Venus conjuncting the North Node is that these people actually, because it is their developmental purpose to develop Venus, they have an underdeveloped Venus. So they also don't have like a very pronounced feeling of self-worth. They don't know how to be in relationships. They don't know how to do relationships, how to compromise, how to think for two, how to be in two. But it is not as hurtful for them, or actually not hurtful at all for them, as it is for the other positions. It is just something that they feel like, I don't know how to do this. It's like weird. And what I see with them is that life usually keeps throwing a lot of relationships on them. So because it is their North Node and life wants them to develop this, they get a lot of opportunities to go into a relationship and learn, but they often do not value these relationships or those partners at all. They usually just value themselves and their own individuality and their own goals much more, and they're not truly willing to step back and actually share their life and adapt their decisions to other people. So they are learning Venus, that's what I see in them, but I don't see them hurting as much as the other positionings. I just see them being like generally not interested in becoming a real partner or having a real partnership. They sometimes tend to be narcissistic, or narcissistic, just more oriented towards themselves than towards compromising. And then if you would have Venus South Node, it would be exactly the opposite. So they have overdone Venus in the past and now have to let go of it. But they don't usually suffer that much because they just really know how to do relationships. They are very comfortable in this role of the codependent, let's say, and they need to get rid of that. But yeah, both of the nodal positionings are not comparable with the other karmic Venus positionings. Yeah, so I did my best in explaining this positioning to you. I hope it resonates, and I did another video where I explain how to resolve this pattern of the karmic Venus. And yeah, I hope that helps. Happy Venus retrograde to you.